And that's what makes us unique and special. Because if we were just general, the regression towards the mean doesn't help us in any way. So I'm inclined to get more and more specific because that's scary and it keeps us honest. And, it's just counter to everything that allows us to hide in the shadows.
Well, it keeps us focused and specific about the who and the why we're about to, it seems to me, because we do know, at least in our mind or guts, who it is we're trying to serve, help, and engage in some way that will have impact. It's hard to have impact if we're trying to do everything for everyone. I call it holding the magnifying glass still. You can focus a magnifying glass, hold it still, and within seconds you can burn through with incredible power. But that same magnifying glass, either unfocused or slightly moving, will do nothing.
Love that.
So yeah, to have impact, focus and hold still. I want to jump back. Well, a couple of things are just burning on me. I want to get deeper into some of the issues you were talking about earlier, but I don't want to skate past some of the technology background and what influences your thinking, because at least in my mind, you're someone who has a good grasp on the technology side of things, but then as a writer and thinker, at least it seems to me from the heart, you have a very special blend of your talents. So I want to go back a little bit on some of your influences in the technology area. Your work, I believe, still is ongoing with Seth Godin's Alt MBA program. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yes, I'm currently the tech lead of altmba.com.
And through there, you said you believe that technology is useless if it doesn't improve how we work and connect. I want you to unfold some of your thinking around how to unify, disparate products and thinking in a way that reduces tech friction to better amplify human connection.
Sure. Yeah, and thank you for the question. So Alt MBA is a month-long leadership program designed to help you become a better version of yourself. People from huge brands like Whole Foods and startups like Kickstarter are part of the program, and freelancers and everything in between. And it's been an adventure and an interesting and rewarding journey watching this come together. Seth and I have been working together for years now. First back during the Domino Project, which you mentioned in my intro, and now as an advisor to my magazine, and also with Alt MBA. So I have a really fortunate situation right now. And the thinking behind the statement that you're describing is the fact that we have a lot of technology available to us. So I used to do some things. So my specific competency when I was doing technical work most recently before Alt MBA was in web performance optimization, basically making websites load faster. And there are a surprising number of technologies and methodologies that go into this work. And I developed a specialty around these. I developed a competence, and that's what allowed me to keep the lights on and to make a name for myself in those circles for years, almost 4 years. I specialized in that work. And, what you find is that things get complicated. They don't necessarily get better.
That's
and
true.
What's a useful skill to have, even if you're not, yeah, if you're technical, if you can create things, that's wonderful. But if you know how to put these technologies together, put these products together in a way that accomplishes a broader goal, you're valuable in a different way. So I am not the most talented developer that I know. I wouldn't even really describe myself as a programmer. I describe myself as somebody who knows how to get things done. I know the different types of tools to use. I understand the thinking behind the technologies required to accomplish certain things. And so the value I provide Alt MBA is knowing what will work, what won't work, why we would use one tool over another, and how to bring these together in a way that supports the broader mission. So I'm responsible for a particular subset of the technologies employed in the program. And, I'm on the hook to make sure that these things work. And so it's incumbent upon me to make sure that I'm making good decisions by selecting vendors and technologies and products that are reliable, that stand for things that we align with as a company, and that work reliably. Because the last thing we need is people to pay this money and to become a part of this experience and not be able to participate. And so a lot of my thinking goes into being kind of a technology tastemaker, because there are a lot of options for virtually everything. And I need to know what to use and why.
Well, that's great. I don't want to push you too deeply back into to work with Seth, but he's such a revered thought leader, and a term that's so overused that it's beginning to have negative associations. But working that closely with someone who has influenced so many people, have there been any particular areas in your time working with them that you can see that have deeply influenced your work in your life in any more cohesive ways? Anything else you want to dig into there?
Yeah, outside of a handful of folks, my parents, namely, I'm not sure that anyone has had a greater impact on how I see the world than Seth Godin. And it's easy to be caught up in the rapture of, hero worship, and everybody knows Seth. But my relationship with him is a little bit different because, because we have worked together.
Of course.
And I think, let's go all the way back to Atlanta, when I was a miserable, much fatter, much unhappier technology consultant living in Atlanta. I had a big house in the suburbs. I used to get up, early on Mondays and fly out to, wherever the client site was, and fly home on Thursdays. I was traveling 40 hours a month, just in travel. I was miserable, and I wanted to make an escape. I was very familiar with Seth's work, but what's been interesting over the course of getting to know him and his work is really getting to the bottom of the message and how it applies to my life. If you read Seth's book, I like audiobooks. If you listen to Seth's audiobooks going back years, and you listen to some of his more recent stuff, it sounds like the same book. Yeah, it sounds like the conversation is simply continuing. And I found it to be particularly interesting and particularly useful. And I think of all the things I've learned from Seth, it's just this ability to live your life in a way that you're proud of. And I think that's the thing most people would be most surprised and maybe happy to learn about Seth's life, is that he's just created a beautiful life for himself. He's very, very, very good at what he does. He's very honest with himself. And the Seth Godin you see on stage and you see on interviews is exactly the same Seth Godin around the office. I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of successful and influential people with large platforms. And there is, in many cases, a significant and sometimes frightening difference between the public persona and the person who is, behind the microphone. When the microphone is shut off.
Absolutely.
And what I would say most about Seth, based on years of working with him on several interesting projects, is that number one, he is a good husband first. He is a good father second, and he's just a great guy third. And everything else that everybody else knows about him comes after that. He's just a tremendous person with tremendous integrity, and he's figured out some things that work. So, paradoxically, most of the things that I admire Seth for have nothing to do with his business and marketing acumen and savvy. You can read pages and pages and chapter upon chapter of his accomplishments in that regard. But I just like Seth as a person because he's a great guy, full of integrity. He brings out the best in folks, and he has an interesting management and leadership style that I've learned so much from. It's hard to quantify. I think when the dust settles, I'm certain Seth will be at the top of the list of folks who have influenced me and changed and helped how I think about business, how I think about relationships, how I think about the world, how I think about fear, and my orientation to these elements. Because it's not these things in the abstract that affect you. It's your relationship to them. It's your relationship to and with money. It's your relationship to and with fear. It's your relationship to and with uncertainty and with love that impacts your work. and that leaves this breadcrumb for others to find and be inspired by, or at least be hopefully touched and affected by. So, in in quote unquote brief, those are some thoughts on having worked with Seth over the years and the influence he's had in my life and in my thinking and even in my writing.
I appreciate your comments, and I see his influence on your writing as I've gone through a number of your posts. A very succinct and thoughtful, consistent style, and the word that I would describe Seth from the outside looking in is consistency and constancy with his work. And I did want to dig into that a little bit because I think it is easy to get caught up in hero worship as opposed to just seeing the man or the woman behind the work. And again, seeing who they are and the consistency of what they do, to pull them off of a pedestal, if you will, not to worship them, but to see that they're consistently doing the hard work themselves, brick by brick, to build the structures that they're putting in place. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. The challenging thing about hero worship, and the reason it's so sinister, and the reason it's so counterproductive, is what we're doing is saying to ourselves, if I figure out everything about this person and how they've done what they've done, that's the work. And so a lot of people obsess about trying to get on his radar and trying to get a meeting and so forth, being a part of his latest project and so forth, when that's not the work. The real work is doing these things for yourself. The real work is your legacy. The real work is your mission. The real work is interrogating your own fears. And so a lot of people make a career out of knowing what Seth and other, leaders are up to. But the real work starts when you say, I'm not going to do this anymore, and I'm going to figure out my way. So I think Seth is very happy to have influenced
the hard work.
That's exactly right. The actual work. There's a great book called War of Art by Steve Pressfield that Seth talks about a lot.
Oh my gosh.
It's an incredible book.
Yes.
And we actually published the sequel called Do the Work through the Domino Project.
Right.
And these really, in the final book in the series, which is through Steve's Black Irish imprint, is Turning Pro. I'd recommend these for, I'm sure this isn't the first time these titles have been mentioned on your show, but I recommend these to all creative professionals. I'd recommend them to everyone. I don't recommend books often, but boy, oh boy, this series is absolutely foundational to properly thinking about orienting yourself to fear and the resistance, as Steve Pressfield calls it.
Amen. Yeah, all of them have been a huge influence on me as well. And Pressfield also has, I think, co-authored or worked on a new book about story that came out a while back that I am not finished with yet, but also goes through and breaks down the story process that was also published by Irish Books as well.
Yeah, Steve is a wise sage among men.
Absolutely, had an influence on a lot of folks doing good, consistent work, because we want to wait for the muse to show up as opposed to showing up to do the work and then the muse shows up while we're in process to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
I want to jump over to one of the profiles that I read on Abernathy of, I think it's Umi Sela, if I pronounce his name right.
Mm-hmm.
He said, our society in every single way seeks to dehumanize people, take away their humanity so that you can treat them as a resource or something to extract from. I've been thinking a lot about the myriad ways that we can fall into that mindset, even with our spouses or children, friends, any of our significant people in our lives. We just want to get stuff checked off our mental list. In thousands of small ways, we try to influence other people into doing things that make life easier for us rather than for them. And I bring this up because so much of what can make processes more efficient for us may make life unnecessarily heavier for someone else. I just want to dig somewhat into your thoughts. That was a powerful piece to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you checked it out. Umi is he is an incredible person. For those of you who don't know, Umi is the founder and executive director of Dream Defenders, which is an organization based out of Florida that cares very much about social justice and affecting change at the legislative level and on down. They're doing some really great down in Florida.